You may have already hauled your empty champagne bottles out to your blue recycling bin, but this election is not over. The balance of power in the U.S. Senate has yet to be determined. And in Georgia, it looks like the Senate race is headed for a runoff in December because the Republican incumbent is sitting on 49.9% of the vote, and Georgia state law says a winning candidate has to have more than 50%. Welcome to Overtime, political junkies. We'll have more on that a little later. First, though, it's time for a few underreported holy mackerel stories in today's news. A young, well-educated man with an exotic name, widely considered a heartthrob, prepared to lead his country today and said that, quote, "The hopes and aspirations of the people are what is important to me." I am referring, of course, to Jigme Kesar Namgyel Wangchuk, who was crowned the new king of Bhutan. Bhutan is a teeny, tiny little country in the Himalayas, right between India and China, with a population roughly the size of Baltimore. The new monarch is the world's youngest king, just 28 years old, an Oxford-educated bachelor the AP describes as looking like a young Elvis. He was crowned the country's fifth dragon king by his father at precisely 8:31 a.m. local time. Today's date and time appointed by astrologers as the most favorable for today's coronation. Important things to know about the new king of Bhutan, other than the fact that he's really cute and he's 28 and a bachelor? Well, number one, his crown has a raven's head sticking out the top of it. Number two, his official kingly footwear is awesome. And number three, he intends to maintain his father's widely admired national philosophy of assessing progress in the country according to the people's gross national happiness, a measure that includes not only money, material gain, but also the spiritual satisfaction of the people. The idea is that material progress is good, money is good, but you should also count the cost of progress to the environment and culture and overall quality of life. Gross national happiness and awesome kingly footwear. Kingdom of Bhutan, very impressive. Now, speaking of spiritual and material well-being, do you remember when Bear Stearns collapsed and the Fed said they would assume potentially billions of dollars in Bear Stearns losses so the company could get bought out for pennies on the dollar by JP Morgan Chase? Remember that? Well, Bear Stearns got sunk by playing very high-stakes financial baccarat with very high-risk mortgage-backed securities. Do you want to know who the taxpayer, have just hired to go to Washington to help the big brains there manage us out of this financial crisis? You are not going to believe this, but the Fed just hired the guy who was the head of risk management at Bear Stearns. Risk management, right up until the moment it imploded this spring. His name is Michael Alex. He was Bear Stearns' chief risk officer, which means, in the words of clusterstock.com today, that he was the guy on the mast charged with yelling iceberg just before the Titanic introduced its bow to a floating chunk of ice. That guy is now going to be a senior vice president at the Fed, the Federal Reserve, advising on bank supervision. What, Bonnie and Clyde weren't available? I wonder how much he'll get paid. I think my gross domestic happiness would be improved if he at least did the job pro bono. Now, finally, our to-do list for President-elect Obama. Last night, we asked you to weigh in online on a honey-do list of issues the Obama administration should tackle immediately, and lots of you did. Thank you for that. Most of you chose the economy as the first issue, followed by universal health care, climate change, Iraq, and infrastructure. Some interesting items suggested that were not on our list: immigration reform, the Sudan, HIV research. One person suggested that the Obama administration should give us Americans a to-do list. That's a nice idea. Also, the metric system was suggested. I love that idea. And here's change I could believe in. Someone suggested an 8-team playoff to decide the college football national championship. You will not get an argument out of the Rachel Maddow Show on that one. Continue to let us know what you want the Obama administration to take on for their to-do list. Go to rachel.msnbc.com. Click on Presidential Priorities over on the left-hand side there for the President Obama to-do list. We will keep you updated on the results, particularly if you keep making really entertaining suggestions.